So now, moving on from that inspiring speech, I think the first element to look at today is if we start thinking about perhaps how we rebuild society and how we make things start happening again for us all. You know, even if we take time out to pause and think about what's happened and how we move forward through this, we've really got to work out how, if we ever go through things like this again, and as we're going through things and moving forward, you know, how do we make things better? And I think the conference is going to concentrate on quite a few bits and bobs of that moving forward. And I think that the first thing I want to look at in terms of research is just what a huge impact it's had on transportation and therefore getting out and about as we age. You know, how do we connect to the things in our neighborhoods and our communities that we want to do? How do we we, you know, get about and involve ourselves in the important things that are in our communities, whether that's, you know, meeting family and friends, whether it's going to clubs, whether it's work, whether it's voluntary activity. So a lot of my research looks at elements around transportation on that front. And one element that we looked at over the last few years has been with Great Western Railway and having a look at how we improve the railways to make them more age friendly. There's some interesting stats in the background of railway usage. Over the last 25 years or so, we've seen a 60% increase in the number of people, or the number of passengers using railways. Huge increase. You know, it's one of the successes in terms of mobility in the country. But we haven't seen that increase uniformly across lots of different groups, and we certainly haven't seen that increase in older people. So even though older people are more mobile than ever before, getting out and about and doing things more than ever before, something like 10% increase in the amount traveled per person on average over the age of 65 over the last 10 years. We haven't seen that on the railways. In fact, there's been a decline, despite those increases in number of passengers, despite older people travelling more, in the number of older people using the railways. So there's been about a 10% decrease over the last 10 years in people over 65 using the railways. So why that is, it's, you know, a bit of a mystery, and we wanted to work out a bit as to why that might be. So over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with Annette Edwards from the Great Western Railway. Annette's worked at GWR since about September 2002. At the moment, she's responsible for working with staff between the London and Swansea routes in terms of the catering provision, the online onboard staff that you have there. So she's got the sort of element of being in charge of customer hosting and you know, that link between the organization and the company and the passengers themselves. And Annette came to see me, I can't remember what it was, about 2015, because she wanted to support older people on the railway more. So I was interested in that as well from a transport point of view. So I think we ended up doing some research together on the railways involving older people, doing some audits of rolling stock and audits of stations and trying to understand where the barriers might be and how we might improve things. So I'm delighted to say Annette's here today to speak with us. Her video isn't working, but I think we can hear you. Can we, Annette?
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for inviting me to the conference. I can't believe that we've got, or I've got technical difficulties. I could try opening my laptop if you would bear with me a second.
Yes, please try see if you can. So about 2015, I think we met. I think Annette. Interesting thinking about the Older People's Commission. It was a day at the Swansea Grand Theatre about older people's. I think it's called the Older People's Day. And Annette went along and met Steve Huxton, who worked at the Older People's Commissioner for Wales back then at the time, and he put us in touch together. Ah, Annette, you're there. Lovely.
I'm here.
Nice to see you.
Technology.
So do I need to let you catch your breath, or are you
No,
right?
that's it. No, I'm fine, thank you.
So I thought if you just start perhaps by, you know, telling us a little bit about what motivated you to want to support older people on the railways. You know, where did that come from?
Well, I'm part of one of Great Western Railway's on train safety improvement groups. And one of the things that we were looking at was our more vulnerable customers and what we could do to make their journey experience better for them. So I thought about, we're always putting information out to customers, but I thought it would be an idea if we asked our older, more vulnerable customers what we could do to help them. So I went along to the Older People's Day in Swansea, and that's where I met Steve. And Steve told me about yourself and the work that you've been doing and your interest in transport. And we met up. I've also done some work with the Alzheimer's Society, and we launched the Dementia Friends awareness sessions at Great Western Railway, which was so successful. The delegates absolutely loved it. They felt that it was really important that we could better support our customers that are travelling, living with dementia, and the people that travel with them as well. So that's gone down really well. We briefed that out to over 3,000 frontline crew. So that's stations, train managers, customer hosts, platform, gate line, and also drivers. And the feedback that we've had from that has been amazing as well. And what we actually learned was the Dementia Friends awareness was helping colleagues not just in their working environment, but also in their personal lives as well, so they could better support relatives and friends who are living with dementia. So it's our colleagues have always been passionate about looking out for older, more vulnerable customers. So this just ties in nicely with everything, really.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's a wonderful thing to do, because I think in our research, or previous research as well, on railways and public transport in general, we know that that role that a customer facing member of staff has in making or breaking the journey for older people, whether it's a bus driver or a train manager or somebody serving the coffee, how that can really improve the journey and make things nice for older people. Staff are crucial on that. So having a wider awareness of older people's issues is vital for that. So that's great to hear. Then you commissioned some research for us to carry out some audits. We had some wonderful journeys up and down your network on railways with older people taking part. You came along on some of those and saw as well. So we've got older people themselves to sort of audit the rolling stock, audit the stations. I think we found all sorts of interesting things: accessibility, boarding and alighting, key issues for older people stepping up and down from the train on platforms. Some issues with lighting on the rolling stock being a little bit dark in places, or moving from areas of light to dark on stations was an issue as well, because accommodation of your eyes, it takes longer to happen between bright and dark spaces, as we age. All completely normal parts of the aging process. Use of stairs, platforms when it's crowded, a bit of an issue, and signage was an issue. So we had some signage was far too cluttered, small, hidden, or inconsistent, and that was an issue, particularly on sort of busier, bigger stations, and perhaps the very small stations as well, where historically they've been adapted to modern things, where we talked about down in Cornwall and Devon and things like that. But it was fascinating to hear that what was barriers to older people themselves from the older people themselves. There was good practice found as well, wasn't there? So Weston-super-Mare was really liked by older people, so that's a really good age-friendly station. Good consistent signage. I think there's a bar on the platform as well as a buffet. Very clean, very tidy. That kind of thing. I mean, from the audits that we carried out, Annette, was there anything that you were sort of surprised about that we found, or were they things you kind of knew about? And you're making steps to improve some of the things, aren't you, that we found, I think. So
Yeah, definitely. When you took the team to Bristol Temple Meads, and that really interesting exercise where they were on a platform and you just said, okay, find your way out. And they couldn't even find their way from the platform to the actual underpass. So when I fed that back to the regional safety manager and the station manager, that signage was getting looked at straight away. And that's happened at a lot of stations. Also, it was the speed of the escalators at Reading.
Yeah.
And some of the issues that the team identified there was absolutely amazing. It's like, you know, this bit of signage is brilliant, but why is it there? And it's sort of things that, and I used to audit the stations that I wouldn't have actually thought of. The other things that have been really useful is when you looked at some of the accident data.
Yes.
And your team was able to identify different times of the day and days of the week, whereas our safety analysts had not picked up on that. And I'm just waiting for permission now to send you another lot, and that is about platform train interface accidents. And a lot of that, unfortunately, is with older people.
Yeah, it was really interesting, isn't it, that older people were overrepresented in accidents on platforms and stepping between trains and coming off, and at different times of the day than you know, where you'd imagine accidents to be. So not at rush hours, but probably because older people are using them a little bit more throughout the day. But also we talked about, you know, there being fewer staff, perhaps they get deployed to do other things during the day. So there's less staff around perhaps to assist older people, but that's probably the time where they're using it most. So yeah, interesting, you know, interesting things. But we you know, we identified some quite small changes that could happen next time the signage is changed anyway, or next time lighting is changed, that could make a big difference. And it's been really interesting to work with you on that and to work with older people. So it's nice to see that things might, you know, actually make a difference from what they said. I just wanted to move ahead now, you know, conscious of time, and we haven't got long left here, but you know, thinking about how things have changed now over the last year because of the COVID outbreak, and you know, how have the railways done during coronavirus times? What's been the major changes, and what do you think the future might hold?
When the Prime Minister said, you know, stay at home, that's what people did. But we still had to keep moving to keep key workers going to work. So whether that be, it's busier maybe from Reading to London for the bigger hospitals, but our customer numbers, as you can imagine, have gone down to virtually nothing. Some of our early trains out of Swansea to London have only got 3 or 4 people on. And going into London, there's about 18 people. We believe that even when restrictions are lifted and our customer numbers do increase, maybe the type of customers that we're going to have are going to be different, because we're not going to have that many commuters. Because working from home, maybe some companies have thought, do you know what, our employees are still as productive, but they haven't got to make that journey into the city, let's say. But we are expecting an increase in leisure travellers.
Yes, that you saw sort of last summer a little bit, didn't you? I think with people holidaying closer to home or having days out close to them, using the railways a lot more in the summer, or people who hadn't used it for a long time. So could that be an area where older people might use the railway then as leisure travellers, possibly?
Yes, we believe so. And it's interesting that you mentioned Devon and Cornwall, and the smaller stations down there, and you know, there's sort of bigger gaps at some of these stations as well, which I know that we said that we'd look at when, you know, when we can leave Wales. But yeah, but we definitely think, and with maybe holidays abroad not going ahead this year, we expect that more people will be staying in the United Kingdom. So our routes into Wales and the West Country, we believe, will be busy. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is that the work that we've been doing, we are now reaching out to other train operating companies. I thought I'd share that with you today.
Excellent. And one final sort of just point to ask you about before we move on really is just, how do we get older people, to back onto public transport? How do you make them feel safe and secure on the railways? Is that, is what's being done? Is it role of staff, ensuring cleanliness? How do you win people's confidence back?
It's about visibility, in my opinion, and that's one of the things that I'm talking to our colleagues about all of the time. But I think when the Commissioner was talking about people's mental health and their concerns, is that some of our crew I've also got concerns about coming back into the workplace when our services do get busy. So it's about getting that balance. Is, look, we've done everything that we possibly can to mitigate the risk. The trains are getting fogged every so often. We've got additional cleaning colleagues that are coming on and cleaning the touch points and everything. But from our customers' perspective, we believe that it is getting the confidence to travel again. And part of instilling confidence in our customers is having our colleagues there where they're visible and they're patrolling through the train. So if customers have got any questions or any concerns, there's a member of the team there to answer their questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Annette. That's been really interesting. Just a couple of questions from the chat. Dawn Wiley reminds us not to forget about toilets and the importance of that. That came up quite a bit, didn't it, in our older people's audits, whether that's on the platform or on the train. Funny things with the doors being too heavy, or when you had the automatic doors, being worried you hadn't locked it and closed it, and that they were all different on different types of rolling stock, came up time and time again. So standardization of that might be good, and make sure the lighting was good and things like that. So there was lots of issues there. Judy Kay mentions perhaps she's suggesting older people lack confidence in using railways in general. I think that comes out from some of the older people we talk to, perhaps haven't used railways for a number of years and don't know the norms and things like that. And Judy mentions confusion with ticket buying and making sure you get on the right train and things like that. And again, I think in our research, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's mostly been the role of the staff have helped to older people again with ticket buying, and much more likely to want to see a member of staff and go and talk to that member of staff about getting the right ticket, very worried about getting the wrong one, and worried about getting the wrong train and things. So staff are crucial in that again, I think.
Yeah, well, with the meeting that we had with the IET fleet manager, they are looking at the lighting in the vestibule, which is really good news. With the universal toilet on the IET, there's an audible message that actually says, please lock the door, which is a good reminder. But the other toilets, they are difficult to open. To be perfectly honest, I struggle to open them. And I think Jamie's sort of looking at that, but I'm not sure what we can do with that. And also something else we talked about, wasn't it, was the digital displays on the IET fleet. Maybe
to tell you where the train's going and stuff. To
slow them down. Slow the actual speed.
Yeah, they're quite quick.
Yeah,
interesting. Yes, well, I think we'll have to leave it there. We're running out of time a little bit, but thank you so much for that, Annette. I think it's a really nice, interesting, real life project to be involved with there, where we can we can, you know, use the expertise of older people to really try and make a difference to traveling and getting out and about. And I look forward to working with you more and on that moving forwards over the next few years, particularly if we think that there's going to be more leisure travel, more older people traveling, and the role of staff within all of that. It'll be very interesting. So thank you very much for that. Lovely to see you. Nice that we did see you. That's great.